right, Joy, welcome to the MSP Xperience Lounge. We are live streaming on LinkedIn, and I hate that I missed you at Ride of Boom in person, but we were both there, and I feel like I was there with you in spirit. It was such a jammed show. I had all kinds of folks I wanted to see and talk to and missed the chance, but what'd you think about it?
It was good. I'm surprised that we missed each other amongst the 800 attendees and 600 vendor personnel. It was a great turnout. I'm really happy for Andrew. I know that he's been working so hard to help the community with everything cyber. And I think that the Right of Boom training and resources that he's providing are super valuable. So I'm really happy for him.
That's great. Any highlights from the show, or you said that networking was really great. You know, you got to catch up with some folks had you not seen in quite some time, or maybe even met folks for the first time in person.
Both, yeah, that's always fun. And I think that the business track on the last day had some good sessions, good information. So I always try to hit the sessions and balance that with the networking and the vendor floor and all of that. So it was great.
And balance that with the blackjack tables, obviously, and craps.
No, roulette. Roulette for me. I won $100 in 5 minutes. I cashed out. That's how I do it. You know, I'm like, the minute I'm up, I double my money. I walk away.
Yep. I'm not going to tell you how much I really wish I had done that strategy for myself. Had a great first day, and then it kind of all went off the rails the second day. Anyway, good. But yeah, I mean, the networking was great. Where did you go to the dinner on the Thursday night? We had Top Golf assigned to us, and so Axiom Connect Wise had some bays at Top Golf for our groups. Did you get to attend that?
I went to the Roost vendor dinner.
Very nice.
WST, and it was great. Really great team there. Charlie and I go back many, many years, so it was awesome to be able to catch up with him.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love hanging out with Charlie. He's the best. So that's great.
He is.
Which do you remember which restaurant you went to, or which venue?
It was like the American Grill. They had the back room, and it wasn't a sit-down dinner. It was everybody was standing, moving around, talking, getting to know each other. So it was really well done.
That's nice. Yeah, if you've been sitting in sessions all day, I could use that. I was on the other side. I've been standing in the booth all day, so I was happy to sit down for a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I can see that.
Awesome. Well, yeah, it was a great show. Sorry I missed you. It is a bit like a needle in a haystack. It's like some of these bigger shows are getting bigger and bigger every year. And if I don't, set an appointment with someone to sit down at a certain time, you never know. But it's really cool that we got to experience it at the same time.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, with that banter out of the way, Joy Beland, if you could give your self-intro to everyone. Your LinkedIn profile has so many acronyms and letters. I would completely mess it up if I were to, do your justice.
I removed them all because I had another certification that I'm really proud of because it was very hard. The C-Risk from Misaka, that's certified in risk and information system control. But it was getting ridiculous. And I was removing old ones and to replace with the new ones. So I'm just Joy Beland now on LinkedIn, and I'm pretty happy about that, honestly. But
there you go.
So a little of my background, I think that most in the MSP community know me one way or another because I've been around a really long time. And that's just what happens when you've been around. I think I started my MSP in 1997.
Awesome.
And I owned it for 21 years. So in 2018, I sold that practice. I was based out of Los Angeles, and I was hyper-focused on security from 2014 to 2018, which was really advantageous for me, both in the sale of the MSP financially, but also because my staff, all but one are still with that MSP. They've done a really great job expanding into more regional or national roles because of their cybersecurity experience. And by and large, all of the customers are still with them. And that's pretty extraordinary for 6 years out.
Absolutely.
I just feel so blessed in the way that everything worked out that way. I do believe a lot of that is because of the intentional focus early on around cybersecurity.
Yeah.
So I went from there to working with Continuum. Absolutely loved that organization. I loved working under Michael George. Um, those in the community who know Michael George know that he's just an amazing human being, one of the best leaders in the industry, in my opinion. And I stood up a foundational cybersecurity boot camp for them over there. So I had a fundamentals for engineers and a fundamentals for salespeople.
Okay.
It really was to help the MSP community understand the value in cybersecurity frameworks and understanding the regulations behind them, as well as the different ways that they can get started and the importance of understanding risk and business impact. And I think that that's one of the most foundational things that we still struggle with to this day is making sure that MSPs are not out there trying to sell a firewall or an email solution, and instead of looking at as those like individual pieces to help to understand at the larger scale, how am I a trusted advisor in the areas of security with my customers?
Right.
So I love doing that. I worked with them. They were acquired by ConnectWise in 2019, I think it was.
Okay.
And then in COVID, I transitioned out of that position and into the CMMC world. And I'm so grateful that I was taken under the wing of Brian Hubbard at Edwards Performance Solutions. Brian also is an extraordinary human being. If you can just imagine my excitement after having taught NIST cybersecurity framework to, I think it was like 3,000 MSPs in that fundamentals boot camp that I had developed, then to go to work for one of the individuals who had authored NIST CSF. You know, when I interviewed with Brian and I found that out about him, I was like, oh man, this is unreal. What an amazing opportunity to be tutored under somebody that has that depth of cybersecurity history and background. And you know, Brian knows everybody loves him. He still is contributing quite a bit to the MSP community now, and because of our relationship, actually. And I'd love to touch more on that. And then I came over to Summit 7 about 2.5 years ago. And originally I was working with them in partnerships, by and large, because I have a nice ecosystem that I have been a part of in the CMMC world of, you know, the assessors, because I was a provisional assessor. I'm a lead assessor now. I developed the training program for the certified professional and certified assessor designations within CMMC. Those are the CCP and the CCA designations. And I've taught about 400 of the future assessors and current assessors as part of the Edwards training program. So I have a kind of a neat reach into the assessor community, the consultant community. I had always had the managed services community, and working in partnerships was a wonderful opportunity for me with Summit 7. And just to wrap up that experience, one of the things that I love about Summit 7 is that we are intensely mission focused. And, you know, our primary purpose is to provide cybersecurity solutions for the defense industrial base, really with the underlying core values and missions being that we are in support of the American dream. You know, it seems like a really big thing, but, you know, like my flag reflects, I think that it's super important for us to be focusing on the intellectual property and what's happening with our cyber resilience on the critical infrastructure scale for the United States. And so it's really important and a great cause that we have here at Summit 7 with amazing leadership. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm the VP of Cybersecurity Compliance with Summit 7.
That's right. And so, yeah, you brought up a great point. It doesn't have to be just government employees or agencies or even Department of Defense employees. Like there's this whole civilian role that can be played in the national security in terms of the cyber resilience for data around the defense industrial base. And so, yeah, it's interesting, like how much that can play.
Absolutely.
You have, I think, some pretty good news you want to share. I mean, you've shared it on LinkedIn, but maybe it's still news to people tuning in. So what's the newest milestone that you've hit?
Well, we're thrilled. As a managed service provider, we had the opportunity to go through a CMMC level 2 assessment ourselves. We did that with a C3PAO, which is a certified, or no, they changed the acronym, CMMC, third party assessment organization. So they came in and we did 2 assessments at one time, so a dual certification. And I think that we're the first and the only in the CMMC ecosystem that's done that. So
Wow.
we were certified both as an organization seeking assessment because we have CUI in our environment. We are a federal contractor, and we intend to expand that part of our role. And also as a service provider. So our managed services and managed security services were evaluated against our shared responsibility matrix, where we demonstrate out of the 110 security controls, which of those are we performing as a capability on behalf of our customers, or where do we share responsibility with our customers? And so those services have now been validated at CMMC level 2, and that allows for our customers to inherit all of those capabilities from us. And we're super excited because it was a very tough journey to get there.
Right.
But, in a bigger level, Bryce, one of the things that I have practiced or preached that I wanted MSPs to practice since 2018 is you have to eat your own dog food out there. You can't go out there
Absolutely.
selling security to your customers and helping them develop documentation and processes and all these things if you don't have that internal to your own organization. So
Right.
if you're consuming that yourself, if you're selling what you consume, there's so much more integrity behind that, and also confidence, both for your own team, right? If security culture wise, it's a huge deal for
Right.
us to have our own CMMC level 2 certifications here at Summit 7, and understand that everything we sell is what we do. This is how we do what we do, right?
Yeah.
It makes a huge difference.
That's incredible. Congratulations again. You're clearly you're walking the walk and not just talking the talk. Do they give you like a cool badge or like an award or
They will.
what do you get? Oh, good,
Yeah,
cool.
they will. We're still waiting on it because there was some discrepancy between what the DoD wanted on the certificate or the badge,
Hmm.
and what the Cyber AB was going to be giving us. So we're still waiting for that, but we do have the official, letter from the DoD saying you are CMMC level 2 certified. So
Incredible. I'm just such a sucker for like the Apple Watch fitness badges and stuff. I'm trying to get as many as I can of like different workouts and different stuff. So like, but to get an actual thing that matters in real life and with that much rigor is absolutely incredible. So congrats again, Joy.
thank you, Bryce. I appreciate that.
That's great. Well, it would be a bit of a waste of time to kind of go all the way back to CMMC 101 and MSP Compliance 101. I think the folks who are tuning in, and by the way, drop your questions and please, this is interactive. This is the MSP Experience Lounge. Kick your feet up. You've had a busy February, I'm sure, no doubt. And this is this is your lunch hour on the East Coast or whatever time it is, just relax, but ask us some questions. We'll get the banter going here in a second. And Joy, you have this amazing expert and guru right here available to you to answer your questions. So please take advantage of that. But rather than kind of zoom out and do this 101 thing, I think folks who self-selected into this live stream and are going to watch it later, they know the topic. If you could maybe still give us a kind of like 15,000 foot view, 2024 versus 2025, what you're already seeing, what do you think is the state of MSPs? Have a lot of folks like started to do that, eat your own dog food, really practice what they preach? Or you think there's still plenty of education left, plenty of, I guess maybe self-training and self-education for the people to then to start to take those steps and feel more confident in raising their compliance kind of stature?
Well, do you know, Bryce, I think that it's both. I think there's a great divide that's happening in the managed service community. I see the more advanced, more mature MSPs are intensely focused on aligning to some framework, really maturing their own processes, their own cybersecurity posture, and understanding what a differentiator that makes for their conversations with their customers. Whether it's the CIS controls, which are fantastic. I love the CIS controls, and there's a lot of great resources out there for these. CompTIA, which is now GTIA, the global version of their security trust mark. They have hundreds of MSPs are falling in line with that. And then, of course, we have the NIST cybersecurity framework. For a long time, MSPs have been trying to understand how to best leverage that for their own practice and for their customers, maybe even some combination of all of those. I don't know. And then now we have the CMMC. So any MSP that has a customer in the defense industrial base or even with CUI in their environment, which is controlled unclassified information, will have a mandate to help them get their own infrastructure, help their clients get their infrastructure aligned to NIST 800-171 and either self-attest and upload their system security plan for that, or undergo a third party, like in the world of the Department of Defense, they have to most likely undergo a third party assessment. So we see that, and then we still see occasionally, and this is by and large the much smaller MSPs that really haven't been able to resource appropriately to do that. And I know some of them. I know them personally. I've known them for many years, and their focus is they really just, they have their core group of customers that they've supported for 10, 20, 30 years. They're happy with the lifestyle type of business. They don't want to have a whole bunch of employees. And they're doing decent security for their customers, but they're not in a position where they're able to really align with the cybersecurity framework and go all in on compliance and regulations. So, and generally their types of customers is going to reflect that.
Right. And so, perfect example, are these kind of like 5 to 10 person shops, or even maybe even smaller than that? How does that conversation go? Yeah, from your perspective, are you sort of trying to say, well, that's all well and good, but this is all coming down the pike eventually. It's going to start here. It's going to be the defense industrial base today, but tomorrow it could be this or that, or the other. Or do you kind of have the conversation with them and say, more power to you. That's your positioning. That's your customer base. That's your lifestyle business. Go for it. Or do you try to kind of open the eyes a little bit?
Everything else is driven by market demand. There are always going to be the small businesses out there that refuse to see the value in securing their network, and are not going to pay, no matter what you do, no matter how well you speak about risk and business impact. They are not going to pay any kind of a premium to have security, because they truly, either they don't believe that it could ever happen to them to have some kind of a breach that could end their business, or they're just at that point where they are financially saying, look, I have to choose between paying my employees or installing this new security thing that you want me to do. So those kinds of businesses will always be out there, and there will always be a market of IT service providers that are willing to service them. Always, but that's where I see the big divide happening, is that those kinds of customers, by and large, are no longer supported by any of the mature MSPs, because the mature MSP is going to look at that and go, it's too much liability for me. You're not in our ideal client profile. We can't scale. We can't standardize the way that we need to in order to be cost efficient. And they're going to let those customers go.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you see this kind of bifurcation in all kinds of places in the economy, but it's just, the risks are getting raised, the stature and just the rigor that you have to achieve that is getting higher. Obviously that takes effort and resources. I mean, we can talk about your journey and how maybe for some there's this, just massive, unconquerable barrier to get started. And you could probably demystify a lot of the compliance topics and say, just get started, just get learning and go on start on this path, and get going. But no matter what we say, it's like it is higher resourcing, and it's going to be higher cost as a result. And so, we kind of, you're right, start to see this bifurcation in the MSP market of what types of SMBs can afford this or in market for that versus who's going to serve that. And of course, there's just so much M&A and so much consolidation, so much large scale scaling, on the security side that we're seeing that. So do you want to talk about your journey and a little bit, maybe for those in the small or mid tier, that it's give them some hope, like it's not a completely untenable kind of thing to get started, either just with NIST to start with, but even with CMMC types of compliance and customers?
Well, way back in the day when I had my own MSP, I had a customer that was hit with ransomware on their home computer.
Wow.
And I think it was in 2014. And so it was pretty uncommon, pretty rare that any MSPs were talking about even ransomware or security. And in that scenario, I had quoted my security tools to be installed on that business owner's home networks. But the business owner was like, no, we don't even care about our home computers or whatever, until it was ransomware, because the wife clicked on a UPS phishing email. And then the wife was all of a sudden, like ready to divorce her husband, because they had years and years of tax returns, every picture of their 2-year-old child since birth, all of these things on that computer, on that hard drive, and saved nowhere else, not backed up. And so, of course, he came to me and he's like, you have to help me. So going through that experience, and it's funny now when I look back at it, because in 2014, for me to pay the ransom, wipe the drive, get the data back, restore the data in a clean manner, and then properly secure it, it took like 8 business days. And I remember it was about $2,000. And in 2014, for one computer, that was a lot of money.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
It's like buy 3 computers or something.
Yeah. But in that experience, like, thank God that happened in exactly the way it did, because I sat down with my team afterwards and I'm like, that was one computer. At the time, our biggest customer had like 308 computers. And I said, can you imagine if that happened to that customer on 308 computers, and they had 9 servers? And I was like, we might be able to get them whole again, but the fact is we would have to completely ignore every other customer, right, for a month, 2 months. And like, we could really clearly see what the repercussions would be. So I went out and built my first security stack. I found as many tools as I could that would help to mitigate the exposure. And there was very little to choose from that were multi-tenant MSP focused back then, right? But I did it. And what I did from the outset was I met with every one of my customers. I explained to them what we had just experienced on a home computer. I showed them a more advanced security stack, and then I offered to meet them halfway and teach their staff about how they can protect themselves. And I think that was crucial, because in that conversation, like the lunch and learns with each of their teams, their staff members, I made it really personal to that customer and to their staff, for them to understand it's not just the work computer I need to protect, it's my home computer. And I think from the outset, that ability to connect it to something tangible, meaningful to each individual, which is a big part of this journey. Like, everyone is worried about, how do I learn, what's the best tools to be using and what certifications do I need? You have to make it personal to your customers. That's the most important thing at the outset, or they're not going to understand why they should do anything about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was a big part of the start of the journey for me.
That's great, Joy. I am always fascinated by, either the MSP genesis for folks or these types of kind of like wake up call events. And, you hear from people constantly of like, this thing got taken down, or the supply chain attack, or this thing. And, at Axiom, the vision is to cure data loss. And I tend to kind of default to think about it in business terms, but like, family photos, like if you were to lose all of your kids, all of your pictures of your kids from years ago and it was just gone, like that's the data loss you don't want to experience, right? That would almost hurt you more than like business things that could be replaced. And so, it's just, and all the way to happen back in 2014. That's now given you 11 plus years of runway to do that as a service, to secure people, to really be an evangelist for this whole movement. So yeah, where do you want to continue the story after that? I mean, I'm sure it's been a windy
Well,
road from there to here.
yeah, so right away I went to get my Security Plus certification and understand at the most basic level what all do I need to know. And then for me, I started to show up. I'm a member of InfraGard, and those who are not a member of InfraGard yet, get on the wait list to get in there. The fact that I've been a member for 11 years has been really valuable. But at those events that InfraGard would have, they'd have the FBI or the Secret Service Cyber Crimes Division locally, and they would have these, Q&As, and it would be targeting enterprise level. Like I would go to these things where they have the CIO of Sony talking about what happened in their breach. And I invited all of my MSP peers locally to come with me. And they were all like, that doesn't even pertain to us. That's enterprise level stuff. And I think that's the wrong way to think about it. I started going to RSA in 2014. Most MSPs will never walk in the halls of the Moscone Center at RSA and attend those incredible training sessions. I mean, it is like brain overload to go there. But there's so much that you can glean from how security is done at a more advanced, more mature level by the enterprise level people. I mean, a VCSO that all these MSPs claim to have. Long ago, I was looking at that and going, well, truly, what is a CISO? And I was meeting CISOs at RSA and thinking, I think it's a little bit scary that any MSP is claiming that they've got a VCSO available to their customers when they are nowhere near the skill level and experience necessary to be a CISO. So maybe a strategic account manager, but understanding at the higher levels what is actually incorporated into those experiences, those skills, what kinds of programs are they creating, and then distilling that down to what's applicable to my MSP and my small business clients. That for me was one of the most unique things that separated me from other MSPs, and always has, along my journey, that I show up to RSA every single year. I can't wait to be there. And that kind of learning and education, and really diving into each of the different frameworks. So the MSPs who haven't chosen a framework that they want to align with, the best thing for them to know is whether it's CIS or NIST CSF or CMMC or the Global Security Trust Mark, there's no wrong choice to start with. And I think that's where MSPs get a little tripped up, because they're like, well, what if I start going down the path of one and then it would have made more sense to do the other?
Right.
And not realizing what crosswalking capabilities there are amongst those controls. You are going to be partially already into another framework as soon as you start your journey on the first one, right?
Great. Yeah, I mean, that's great inspiration to folks of, you don't have to, you can have this analysis paralysis of, well, I just need to take so much time to do the pros and cons and evaluate the protocols against each other, and what do I want to do, versus, I wouldn't say, just like jump in, like fly by the seat of your pants, but I mean, get started and start to learn one, rather than just kind of sit in the sidelines forever, being afraid of this sunk cost of time and resources. I think it's probably more to your detriment to just not be in the game at all, like to just not be pursuing it.
Yeah. I also think that peer groups are really important for MSPs, making sure that they're doing something that other folks in their circle are doing when they're implementing a framework. And then for them, when they're, first of all, do it on their own MSP instead of going straight to doing it for a customer, if you can. And then inviting a third party, whether it's another MSP, whether it's somebody from outside of your circle, whatever your comfort level is, but having another third party come in to look at how you've implemented those controls, because we only know what we know and we don't know what we don't know. Right. And I think that's a big mistake some MSPs make, is that they just want to, we did it, we implemented it ourselves, but the things that they're missing, that's where the real learning is. That's where you're able to look at things from a different context, a different perspective, and that's where you bring the true value to your customers, right?
Absolutely. You mentioned a couple. Are there any other peer groups you want to kind of give a shout out to, or just? And by the way, Isabella posted all your resources in the chat, so you done all this great
Yeah.
work to compile all this stuff. So please, everyone, take a look and click through the links. And Joy's just giving you a treasure trove of resources. But in that same vein, yeah, what are some other communities or starting points, or just frames of reference for people?
There's so many out there. I know that the Robin Robbins has security peer groups. I know that the MSP Cyber Exchange, in full disclosure, I'm there on their board. But that's Brian Hubbard's really great. He put together these peer groups, and there's free memberships all the way through different levels of paid memberships that Brian's doing. But the MSP CyberX, they are available and working with MSPs for all different kinds of frameworks, not just CMMC. And then, of course, you have the Evolve groups, many different types of peer groups. Leah Shillabad, I don't know if you know Leah, but she has a great peer group she's running for CMMC readiness.
That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. There's so many, and as I always say, I mean, maybe it's a little less relevant to getting a little bit more specific around security topics, but just community in general for MSPs, just to grow their practice and to get better best practices and everything. I mean, it's kind of a choose your flavor type of approach, right? There's so many, and kind of go.
It really depends on how much hand holding you want. Some people are perfectly fine with the MSP Reddit channel, on
sure.
On Reddit or on Discord. And others want to have guided training, like Black Hills Information Security. The Pay What You Can courses are phenomenal. John Strand, I'm a huge fan of his. There's just so many ways that you can go, and really there's no reason not to get started or dive in deeper. Right. I have a good friend for many years, and I've encouraged him he started to give talks actually about this, but he called me, I want to say 3 years ago, and he was like having heart palpitations and so much stress, his small MSP, because he hadn't really taken seriously the need to learn around cybersecurity. And he was constantly stressed about, what if one of his customers gets breached, and what is that going to look like? How much liability? He could lose his MSP. There's just so much and I could hear like that fear and that anxiety in his voice. And he was like, I just need to know, what do you do? How do you get started in it? And I gave all the same information, but to his credit, within like a year and a half, he got his CISSP.
Awesome.
And I just saw him at Right a Boom, and we were talking about how I'm watching him out there just doing all these webinars and speaking engagements and getting all of his team members skilled up in cyber. Like, he just really embraced it and went for it. And he has this level of confidence about him that is just palpable. When you speak to him, it's palpable. It's so awesome to see.
It's incredible. Yeah. Brad, thanks for the comment as well. I've heard great things about the PAX 8 peer groups as well. Yeah. So we don't wish heart palpitations on anyone, but it does seem to be that in a lot of cases, you need this eureka moment. You need this wake up call. You need this kind of, it has to become real to you, to your point. It has to become really tangible and not okay, well, I just want to kind of do what everyone else is doing. It's almost like it has to become personal to you around a certain client of yours, or of course you want to do this beforehand, before you have some kind of incident or breach or anything like that. But maybe seeing this happen to someone else, or seeing the news, or just your ruminations at night thinking, man, I don't think I'm, as prepared for this type of event as I want to be. And that motivation, that you just really internalize it and it drives you, and then you do the work, and to your point, a year and a half later, you're there and you feel way more confident, and you've kind of, I guess, got over the hill in that case.
Yeah. And it's so great to see Brad Gross on here. He's an awesome guy, and he can probably tell you hundreds of stories about MSPs that have issues with liability, or in today's day and age, it's a lot different than back in 2014 to 2018, when I was so hyper focused on that with my own MSP. The regulations now, the levels of liability the dependence on an extremely clear SLA and contract with your customers. Like everything is in a different world now, right? And even the cyber insurance requirements, it's definitely not what it used to be. So MSPs that are not paying close attention to it and maturing their security practice, they're in a world of hurt when something happens, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Back to your point about RSA and how, probably there's maybe not enough enterprise level focus and rigor in the MSP space. Is it fair to say that, cyber, unlike real life or, physical around the neighborhood life, it's not like you have a Fort Knox and you have a convenience store. If robbers want to rob Fort Knox, it's going to be pretty tough. If they want to hold up the 7-Eleven, it's going to be a different kind of stature. But I feel like cyber just kind of levels the playing field to a degree. And so, to ransom your MSP and your business, that's worth millions of dollars. The data of all your clients and your network, it's still worth a lot of money. You kind of have to get to that enterprise level or to some degree, because that is your business. As an MSP, the cyber criminals out there are going to attack you just as much as they want to go after a Fortune 500 company.
Yeah, well, I want MSPs to better understand the roadmap for their maturity. What does good look like? And as they continue to grow, they have to release that small business mindset. And with the ability to scale, they have to know what are those next types of roles and experiences and skills that we need to bring into our own resource pool here. And I think the best way to learn that is to be in areas like RSA, where you're meeting people that, that's like where my head just really exploded for the opportunities of governance, risk, and compliance. The whole GRC, the platforms, the people with all the different types of roles and responsibilities, different types of risk assessments. All of that I started learning in 2018. That was a major focus of RSA. I remember walking the vendor floor and you couldn't go 10 feet without some kind of a GRC platform or MSSP service smacking you in the face. It was just really important for me to get ahead of that in my thought process. Where do I want to be when I grow up? What kinds of skills and responsibilities do I want to be embodying 5 years from now, 3 years from now, and how do I get there? That's, the people you meet at RSA, the sessions you attend, the vendors you speak to, that will help guide that maturity substantially.
That's great, Joy. I mean, I think that's a common theme when you talk to people around security is they tend to have a longer time frame sort of mindset. I think, these certifications take time. Building your practice up takes time. Rome wasn't built in a day. You sort of just have to have a longer view. And I guess that's maybe the difficult tipping point is if you've got your tickets are blowing up and if you're just like constantly on your back foot and reactive in your current business, in your current state, you don't feel like you have the time and resources to kind of get over the hump and to do that. But those that can kind of reach that tipping point and say, all right, we're going to take this time. We're going to be proactive. I would imagine that kind of solves that problem for itself of then you get more proactive, you have less fires, you're probably not reacting to as many things because you have more confidence in your stance at that point.
Well, ideally, in those types of roles, as you grow, you're implementing processes and standards that are going to be able to protect you proactively,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if we love it. Yeah. If we could shift gears a bit, not to put you on the spot, but what do you think, what does your crystal ball say at a higher level around compliance? I think that's big burning question for a lot of folks is the industry writ large, are MSPs going to become like another sort of professional organization that has a certification or type of requirement? And or what other protocols do you see either going from levels 1, 2, and 3 to 4, 5, and 6? I mean, what are you hearing? What does your crystal ball tell you?
I think we've been saying since 2018 that any day MSPs are going to get regulated. I mean, it's kind of crazy that we're not, especially considering other types of what would be really inconsequential public services that people provide that are regulated. But I think the best answer to that is that most MSPs are doing this on a voluntary basis, getting some kind of a certification or aligning to a framework, getting prepared for it. And I'd love to see our industry do that in a meaningful way, like with the cybersecurity trust mark, where we're able to prove that we are kind of regulating ourselves, maybe not as required by a third party, but that we have by and large understood that we need to be accountable. And the best way to do that is to have a third party come in, whether it's for a formal certification of something, or just to validate that, yeah, we had another resource come in and look at the way that we've implemented our controls. We have a gap assessment that was done. We understand what needs to still be remediated. This is our plan to have that done. That kind of maturity is going to help MSPs immensely from not being regulated.
Right.
And only time will tell. In the CMMC world, even when it came down to the last minute with the publication of the updates for 32 CFR, and they said MSPs in fact don't have to have their own CMMC level 2 certification. Honestly, when I first read that, I was really disappointed, because I thought, this is critical infrastructure data. Like, you don't want F-38 fighter jet schematics leaked out of one of your customers because you told them, yeah, we've got that locked down, but then you didn't really, and you don't know what you're doing as their MSP. But I think the Department of Justice is going to carry a big enough stick around to have both the contractors that are securing the services of the MSP and the MSP look at it in the frame of, what kind of liability am I facing if I don't do this right? And whether that is for them to get their own CMMC level 2 certification, or simply to have a robust, in-depth understanding of those security controls and to do that properly. I think that the DoD is still going to benefit greatly from service providers being in scope for those assessments.
Yeah, that makes total sense, Joy. So you're speaking in this one line of thinking for the defense industrial base specifically, and maybe if they, in your opinion, kind of fell short on this latest update with not requiring it, that could be remedied at some point, and just at some point, top to bottom, the defense industrial base work is just going to get locked up more so, inclusive of MSPs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then in other realms, do you think that some of those, there's all kinds of sub industries that do something like this, around sustainability? The B Corp movement was a nonprofit that got started to sort of have this almost voluntary certification that you're doing things in a certain, sustainable, equitable kind of way. And someone just decided to start that. That wasn't like a government initiative or anything that got pushed down. The industry just decided, hey, let's create a higher standard to kind of adhere to. Do you feel that the ones out there are good enough, or do you feel someone else should raise their hand and say, you know what, we need to form this and let's make this standard and let's agree on what it is and let's offer it to, as a voluntary thing, offer it to MSPs?
Well, I do think it's okay to be specific to an industry.
Mm-hmm.
I think the MSPs who have a vertical that's 100% on healthcare, for them to know HIPAA inside out,
right.
And then for banking and regulation to have theirs, and the PCI. I think that the most comprehensive, the one I like that spans a lot of those different types of frameworks, would be the security trust mark. Mm-hmm. I do think that that's a really worthwhile, robust one, and from that one you can pivot to a lot of other frameworks and be a good way there. And I think what Wayne Selk has done over there is pretty spectacular. He really should be commended for the amount of work he's put into this.
That's awesome. So you'd encourage people to check that out and maybe see how their MSP could align to that.
I would, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Are you hearing other things as you talk to partners? Are they excited about compliance? I hear a lot of times compliance is a great thing because those are the easiest sales you can do. Like once you go to the client that has to do a certain thing, and then they need that extra amount of security, it's almost a better trusted advisor conversation of how the MSP can add value, rather than, to your point, those SMBs that we talked about earlier that just aren't in market for that? Are folks kind of hoping for more regulation in some ways?
I don't know if they're hoping for more. It's true that if you have a customer that finds out now they have no choice but to implement NIST 800-171, and you're their MSP, and they come to you and say, what is this going to cost me? That you've got a great opportunity for revenue. There's a lot of misinformation out there, though. So I would be careful of any easy buttons where an MSP may think, oh, I can just buy this for $5,000, sell it for $50,000 to my customer. And
Right.
the fact that there's those conversations going on out there, it just kills me. You know, there's in HIPAA, there's the wall of shame that you can go to that shows what kind of breaches have happened in the healthcare industry. And it allows the public to have an awareness of where do I not want my data, and where am I not going to go for healthcare. But we don't have anything similar to that for other industries like CMMC, right?
Yeah.
So I do think it's a advantage for an MSP that wants to focus like on CMMC and the defense industrial base, knowing that there's 80,000 businesses that will have to have a third party come in and validate their CMMC level 2 assessment. And it would seem like that's a great money-making opportunity. But I hope that they understand the true resource and intense resource needs to be able to get their customers there in a meaningful way and do it for the right reasons. Because, making money is great, but doing that is the sole reason that you're getting into something. We see a lot of those. And frankly, I'm pretty nervous because I think there's a lot of customers that are going to fail their assessments, and they're going to look at the MSP and say, I thought you said I was ready for this. And there's going to be some shakedowns.
Yeah. Not being able to deliver in business is always bad, but it's when it's with some kind of compliance or when there's like really, almost national security ramifications for not delivering. I mean, that's just really, really scary to think about.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Okay.
I guess last kind of question on this topic, and then we can change gears a bit. But I've heard at times, there's sort of like ripple effects from even beyond the defense industrial base to now we're seeing more local and state governments or police forces or others kind of just adhering to CMMC. What do you think about this ecosystem? Is it kind of broadening out, would you say? Or how do you see it getting structured?
Yeah, from the beginning, any federal agency that has controlled and classified information and shares it through their supply chain has been subject to 32 CFR. So the COI program has been around since 2016, where it prescribed in NIST 800-171, focused on confidentiality of data. And that focus on confidentiality of data can expand well outside of just federal agencies. It certainly could be very helpful to state and local agencies. We are seeing higher education. We're seeing a bunch of other verticals start to pop up and really embrace it. The question will be, are they going to have self-attestation where you just say, yes, I'm compliant with NIST 800-171, or will there be a need for a third party to come in and validate that? So that's where we see the expansion. But DoD is only the first agency that requires the third party validation. NIST 800-171 is applicable to all those other government agencies. And so we'll see if they are going to stick with, just, pinky swear that you're doing it versus we need someone to come in and validate it.
Excellent. I've learned a lot today. I'm definitely going to have to Google the HIPAA wall of shame, and then I love the pinky swear attestation. Let's move beyond the pinky swears. I love it. Well, cool. Let's, if you don't mind, any closing thoughts on the topic before we go to the rapid fire round, where we get to know you a little bit better.
Closing thoughts would just be to do the right thing. It's so much easier than you think to get started on the journey. And if you haven't started on the journey, feel free to reach out. I take calls, emails, and LinkedIn messages all the time from folks who are asking questions about compliance, and I'm always here to help. So
amazing. Awesome. All right, Joy. Well, let's have folks get to know you a little better. Obviously, they know you as an expert, but I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite city in the world?
In the whole world,
Yeah.
probably Kyoto.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, my husband and I went there before COVID, and I think it was just so. All of Japan is so exotic and amazing, but of all the different areas we went to, Kyoto was really special. Um, and I loved being in a country where the majority of their signage, their transportation, everything is in Japanese.
Right.
It was authentic, you know.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of a grieving that I'm going through in most of the Central America and South American areas where it used to be 100% Spanish, and now you go there and everything's in English on the menus, and you have American restaurants everywhere. So I liked that about Japan.
Right.
It's very unique to its culture.
Yeah, you didn't used to be able to go to China and go to Burger King, and now you can, and so it's a little less authentic than it used to be. I get that.
Yeah.
All right, night owl or early bird?
Total early bird. People think I'm nuts, but I get up at 3:30 every day. I work East Coast hours from Los Angeles, and I've done that since 2018. But my circadian rhythm is I'm just such a morning person. And the cool thing to me about that is that I sign off at like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. I live on the beach in Los Angeles, and I'm out there playing in the waves and, you know, smash ball, paddle ball, jogging, whatever it is, all afternoon. So to me, it's a super easy trade-off.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think a lot of us could adopt that. Then you actually get to enjoy, like in the wintertime, the sunlight at the end of the day, right? For a lot of us, you know, for East Coast trying to work some West Coast hours, then you don't get to see the sunset or go outside. So
true.
I'll take it. We have this question, mountains or beach. I think I may know the answer, but you know, you might surprise me.
Well, you know, I'm missing the mountains. You know, it's like I feel like ridiculous to complain that being at the beach is just one vista, but I really love the mountains. And my husband and I are looking at moving to like Oregon or somewhere that I miss the Pacific Northwest quite a bit. And so I love them both.
That's great. That's awesome. And I forget, are you a dog or cat person?
Definitely dog.
Nice.
Mostly horse. So
horse word. Okay, good. Yeah, we got to expand the answer choices on our rapid fire questions. our lightning round needs to diversify a little bit. That's great. Yeah. Well, Joy, it's been just amazing to talk to you and love the expertise. I think you wanted to mention a webinar that you're doing tomorrow. Can you tell everybody about that?
Yeah, so the National Society of IT Service Providers, which goes under the acronym of NSITSP, they're doing a series on compliance. And last month they did the CIS controls. Tomorrow I'm going to cover the CMMC controls. And throughout the year, they're going through each of the different frameworks. And, you know, it's really well done. And they have a lot of resources available. So if you're an MSP and you haven't already joined NSITSP, you should consider it. I think it's very inexpensive to join, and they have thousands of members now with a lot of great resources. So I'm looking forward to doing that tomorrow.
Is it free to do the webinar if you're not a member? Is it sort of?
I believe so. I know that they are. They're putting it out there on LinkedIn. If it's not free, then I think a membership for the whole year is only like $100. So
nice.
Yeah,
that's great. All right, so you can Google that and check out that webinar for tomorrow. I did want to mention for us on the Accent side, we have something called the BCDR Showcase that's going to be at the end of March. And we have our big customer event, our virtual event in October, which is the MSP Xperience Summit. And that's just huge. And we have awards and, you know, we'd like to bring in panels and speakers. This is a bit of a checkpoint so people don't have to wait the full year for that. And it's a little bit more around the product roadmap and for those kind of kicking the tires of what types of BCDR that they want to explore. So just sign up here. It's a free virtual event, March 28th, 9th, 29th, I think. And it's totally free to sign up for, register, and get your seat for a BCDR Showcase. Excellent. All right, Joy, if people want to reach out, of course, they can find you in the webinar. You just said they can email you, talk to you, find you on LinkedIn. Any ways you want people to get in touch?
LinkedIn is the best. If you put in Joy Beland, I think that there's only 2 in there, and the other one is in Chicago, and she's a judge. So that's not me.
Right. You're on the West Coast working East Coast hours. So Joy
That's
Beland.
right.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Congrats again on this stage gate that you just got with the certification. Really
Thank you,
appreciate your
Brad.
time, Joy, and I'm sure I'll try to find you at this next conference when we run into each other.
I'll look forward to it. Thanks for
Awesome.
having me.
Thanks for coming. Really appreciate it. Thanks
You bet.
everybody. All right. Bye-bye.